G'day, I'm John Hogan, and this week we're joined with Andrew Bell from Ray White Surfers Paradise Group. We've both been talking at different events around town about what common interests our customers and stakeholders have.
Absolutely.
And so it seemed like a great opportunity to, seeing as we both do blogs, we do one together.
Yeah, and congratulations on some of your recent awards. They've been amazing achievements, and it's great to be associated with a business as successful as yours.
Thank you. Well, Mutual Admiration Society, isn't it? You guys the same, 20 years of leading sales in the Ray White Group.
Yeah.
I think because we live on the Gold Coast and we love the waterways, waterfront real estate, is the sort of thing that many people aspire to. And when that time comes, there's a few things for people to look at. It's all around the boat and what fits, and quite often people that come from another country or whatever, there's a lot to learn, don't you think?
Yeah, there is a lot to learn. There's a natural attraction on the Gold Coast to the waterways, obviously beachfronts and the Broadwater and so on, but actually the canalways as well. And so a lot of people assume they know about things like tidal movements and access under bridges and a whole range of things, but I think you do need to speak to an expert. If you're intending to be involved in boating and so on, you need to be speaking to an expert to make sure that you've got the right advice.
Yeah, and it's free advice.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
When people are thinking about that purchase and they really use your people to sort of talk about the on land, it's very easy to ask one of your people, can we have the water checked out as well?
Yeah.
And little things, there's over 800 kilometres of waterfront on the Gold Coast. About roughly half of that is man-made canal structures.
Yes.
Those have maintenance dredging.
Yes.
There's depth of water issues. There's a lot of rules about the actual waterfront itself.
Yeah.
And how that relates to that.
And I think boating's extended its reach now because years ago it was maybe a tinny or it was a larger boat, but now you've got things like jet skis, which are very common, and so there's an increasing demand for access to the waterways. Not everyone wants to have a jet ski that's stored in the garage and towed to a boat ramp and so on. Most people would much prefer to have the jet ski at the back of the home and perhaps on a pontoon.
What are you seeing that convenience do to values on the waterfront? What's happening there?
Look, no question that there is a distinct difference between dry blocks of land and waterfront blocks of land. And even within the waterfront blocks of land, there's variations due to whether they're north side of the bridges and so on, which means you can have larger boats, where they're positioned for the length of time to get up into the Broadwaters and so on. And so we're definitely seeing not only is there more value in waterfront homes, but there's more value in homes that also have jetty facilities.
Yeah. Do you think it's more resilient through the peaks and troughs of the cycle?
Everything pretty much gets affected.
Yeah.
If a market's on the way down or way up, there's a fairly uniform effect. But, if someone's got a large boat, there's a very limited amount of space that they can put the boat in.
Yeah.
And so you tend to find property values would hold a little firmer in those sort of markets, as opposed to markets where there's plenty of property of a similar nature.
Yeah, you're right. It's a less elastic market because people will tend to stick with the property more because of the boat.
Correct, absolutely.
Of course, Ray White's also involved with Ray White Marine with boats too, right? How does that work?
Look, it was a natural progression for us because here on the Gold Coast, of course, we sell so many properties that have boats at the back, and often we were coming across a seller, he'd say, well, we're moving into an apartment or whatever the case may be, we've got to get the boat sold. And so we just got to a point of saying, well, why can't we do for boat owners what we do for property owners?
Yeah.
And so it's been a natural progression for us. And it's been a really good fit to have the ability to help people to not only sell their homes but their boats, and vice versa, people buying homes to help them buy a boat.
Yeah, and I guess it's a little like what we did. We built the floating berths because that's, in the old days, it was a wooden jetty.
Yeah.
Else. Yeah. And then they said, well, let's go floating because it's always at the right height, it's safer, easier. But then the accessories like boat lifts and all the rest came along, and so you just find that if it makes sense as a clean add-on for customer convenience, it's a great
natural progression.
Yeah, it's natural. So one of the things I think is the amount of regulation that occurs on waterfronts that people probably don't realise. In travelling around the world, there's you can pretty much do what you like in a lot of places.
Yes,
But we're quite regulated here in that you don't actually own the water, right?
correct.
So when you buy your property, there's a boundary line that finishes at the revetment wall, usually.
Yes, correct.
Paradise Waters, no, you go a little further.
Yeah,
That's a bit of a trap, that one.
some of the old laws and regulations, but
Yep.
look, I always get frustrated by some regulations, but I then try to go back to the fact that they're there for a reason. And they're there for some sort of protection, whether it's for you as an individual, for the community at large. And so we are probably more regulated than many countries, but we look around at the wonderful environment we live in, we say, so much of this was for our greater good.
Yes, I think so. And that comes down to like a registered professional engineer signs off on every one of those structures. And if you don't have it, you don't receive an approval.
Correct.
And it is inspected to make sure it's done of a decent quality.
Yeah.
And there's things like setbacks and sightlines that people think about. So your neighbour can't just go in and run a big structure right up to your boundary. You've got setbacks just on land.
Correct.
And we think that's, over the years, that's been fine-tuned.
Yep.
The people that have to approve these have been caught out before, so they know there's a reason for it.
There is, and as I say, I think it's for a great protection, and I prefer to have the regulations than not have them.
Oh, yes. Yeah. At the end of the day, our home is our home, and you don't want hassles at home. You can go to work and have hassles if you like, but when you come home, you want peace.
Correct, and particularly when you are eventually on selling your property, you want to make sure there's nothing that's going to be detrimental for the next person buying in, whether it's overlapping from a neighbour or that there's something wrong with your structure that might eliminate your property as a potential purchase.
And we've all seen that one.
Yeah,
That's a huge one that the contract signed, it's 30 days, on day 28, the call comes and says, you've got a legal structure on your property. What happens with that contract at that point?
Well, there's a multitude of different things that can happen. Some people just accept it and say, look, I'll deal with it, and hopefully nothing comes of it, but that's rare. What would generally happen is either people will try to negotiate the price downwards, saying that I've got to go and try and correct this, or they'll say, I'll buy it, but you've got to go and correct it, which means a protracted period of time and so on. So it usually creates hassles that you don't need. So far more preferable to have it exactly right from the start.
That's really good advice, I think. And with all of what we do, there's some complexities to it, but because we do it every day, it's not really complex anymore.
No, it's not for people like you and I, because we do it every day. In so many other fields that I'm not an expert in, I see them as very complicated, but the experts in those fields can make it very simple. I think that's where it is always beneficial to go with someone that's got expertise in the field.
Yes, and I'm in awe of how they make it so simple.
Yeah.
Just little things like an owner's consent form that says, look, you can go out and try and read all the regulations and approach all of the departments, but we'll do it on your behalf if you'd like to sign this document. And that's a way you can work together to streamline it for everybody. And makes a lot of sense. Probably in closing, Gold Coast Waterways Authority, that has a huge effect on what happens now for the waterways on the Gold Coast. Have you seen some of their recent stuff that they're sending out?
I have. I guess, as a boatie myself, I have a particular interest in what does happen in our broader waterways, and there's many schools of thoughts. We know at the moment there's proposals for the new casino and how that might affect Wavebreak Island, and personally I frequently moor next to Wavebreak Island, and there's part of me says, well, just don't change that. But I also know that we're a growing and progressive city, and that we have to accept that there's some changes. But we need some expertise around this. We need proper studies be done to know what's for the greater good. And we know that the Broadwaters need some dredging for quite some time. There wouldn't be one of us hasn't been up on a sandbank over the years. And so I support the concept. Just want to make sure that there's a lot of good discussion, good debate, but I do believe that this ultimately will be for greater good. I don't think we'll ever get government support unless there is some sort of an authority that can be seen to have done all of the necessary community consulting and carried out all the research that they need to do.
Yeah.
So I'm trusting in this early stage that this will develop. There'll probably be some hiccups in the initial stages,
Yeah.
But it's far better than this sort of lone voices all over the place call on government to do something.
Yes.
So I think this is the authority in which we can get some action.
I share that too. I think it's good for all of us. And this has really just been a touch today on, some of the things that we deal with in the waterfront. And there's probably more detailed issues that people have.
Yes,
So it's easy to email via the video log back
absolutely.
if you've got questions, and we could do it again in slightly other areas
Yeah,
rather than just the general one today.
yeah, love to. We've got a lot of common interest.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in,
Pleasure.
and we'll see you soon in our next video blog. Bye.